Hello, everyone. We're so happy to greet you in 2016 for all of our members of the Sevaka order. We're speaking to you now from Ananda Village. Last time we were recording in Gurgaon, India. And so it's nice to be in all the wonderful places where Ananda has been established. So we'd like to share with you now some thoughts and some focus items for the coming year, the new year, 2016.
So, hello friends. One of the very nice things about pre-recording, which we have to do in order to process and then get it out at the first of the month, is that you can pick auspicious days for recording. This is very auspicious. It's Christmas Eve. It's morning here, and overnight we had a little bit of snow and are expecting a little bit more this afternoon and evening. And this period of time at Christmas time is very, very sacred. Yesterday was the long meditation here, and we had a beautiful, really beautiful and deep meditation. And then Christmas Eve, which is wonderful everywhere. And I'm sure most all of you will be participating in some sort of a group celebration this evening on Christmas Eve, and then tomorrow Christmas Day. We shouldn't get so caught up in the festivities, however, that we miss, of course, the fact that this represents the birth of Christ, and more importantly for us, the birth of Christ consciousness in the world. This period of time from, the long meditation, even from Thanksgiving up through Master's birthday, is a very sacred time for us. But especially this 12 days of Christmas, you might say, which extend from Christmas through Master's birthday, is a very, very sacred time, and one in which the Christ consciousness becomes more palpable and more powerfully present in the world. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because one of the roles that the Sevaka order needs to play, and each of us individually need to play, is to be peacemakers in the world. This world at this time is so filled with conflict, and in fact that conflict may end up getting a little worse before it gets better. We got a very interesting email from Drupada talking about some of the influences coming up in 2016. And one of the influences is that Saturn and Mars will be together for a number of months. And what this does for the world is it has the tendency to increase separation, increase division, increase prejudice and hatred and warfare, all of that. And so the forces that are dividing the world, and we can see that. We can see the influence in the Mideast. We can see the influence in American politics. We can see many, many of those influences that are dividing the world, separating it, and getting people to reaffirm that they're right, other people are wrong, and therefore other people are what? They're no longer valid enough to live, they're no longer valid politically, whatever it is. At any rate, I don't want to dwell down into the problems of separation. I want to talk about our role, which is to be the peacemakers, because that same conjunction between Mars and Saturn, if it isn't taken outward, creating division outwardly, if it's taken inwardly, it's a very, very good time for devotees, because our battle is not an outward battle. Our battle is the battle against ego. And Saturn becomes a disciplinary force for us to battle against the ego that is within. And so in many ways, astrologically as well as other ways, what is night for the worldly man is day for the yogi. what is creating difficulty outward into the world, because when you blame others or think the battle is outward, it creates chaos. When you realize that the battle is inward, it creates a very deep spiritual opportunity. And so we all have that spiritual opportunity. So I would like to suggest a couple of things. One is that we try very hard in this coming year to go inward and to really work on expelling those aspects of the ego that keep us from unity with God. Because that's the real enemy. The enemy is not outside. And so those aspects, it'll differ from person to person for each one of us, according to past karma, past lives, our samskars that we bring forward will differ in particularly what battles we have to fight and what inner enemies we have to overcome. But for each of us, let's work this year on really overcoming the ego. The best way to do that is not to fight against, but to fight for the forces of good, to be Krishna's soldiers, not thinking of ourselves as having even to fight the ego. Best way to fight the ego is not to get into its darkness, but rather to get into God's light. And where God's light is, no shadows can exist. And so for us to get more into the light of God, more into the Kutastha, where God's light is most manifest, to bring our heart's energy, the likes and dislikes, the aspects of Chitwa, up and offer them up into the light of the unity with God at the spiritual eye. As we practice that and do it more and more powerfully, inwardly we will become more and more beacons of light. And so if we then do that process inwardly, then it's that light, that peace, that joy that we can and indeed must express out into the world. In part, we need to do this every day in our meditation, and Devi will talk a little bit more about that. But also we need to do it in other ways too. When Swami was first creating Ananda, and when he was living in San Francisco, there was a character who was another spiritual teacher, Stephen Gaskin. And he came out of the San Francisco hippie days, eventually ended up traveling across country with these kind of wildly painted buses and quite a trip, and ended up establishing the farm in the southeast of America, I believe in Tennessee. I'm not quite sure of that. At any rate, he and Swami had a nice friendship. Swami was always bemused because Stephen was a professor of, I believe, English literature or English in college, but he acted like a little bit of a country bumpkin or a hippie. And one time he was introducing Swami at a conference for communities, and he said something like, I want to introduce this here Swami Kriyananda. He don't come into town like some out-of-town hustler with his take-down pool cue. This guy's the real thing. He's got all his chakras shiny and bright. And then he introduced Swami. So one of the things that Stephen said is that when I started, I felt like this world was so bad that I needed to rip it apart. He said, as I got into it a little bit more, I realized that it is already ripped apart, and all I could do was do my very best to help sew it together again. And so we too can take that. This world is going through its trials, and that's its karmic pattern, karmic test for our age. Our job as channels of light, as agents of Master's love, as those who are trying to tune in to the unifying force of Christ consciousness. Our job is to do everything that we can actively, consciously, to knit this world together and unite it in love and peace, brotherhood and harmony. God bless you.
Hello, friends. Well, continuing on this theme, Jyotish mentioned our friend Drupada. Some of you may not know who that is. He is a very accomplished Vedic astrologer who Swami Kriyananda and many, many of us have very high regard for, a lot of respect. And he's a disciple of Master, and his readings are always very insightful and intuitive. And so he wrote us this letter, which Jyotish referred to, and he said, not only is Mars affected by Mars being a kind of belligerent, aggressive planet, affected by Saturn, which is intensity and concentrated energy, but also Scorpio, which again is a intensifying planet. And so what he said was the trend for 2016 looks like January and February will be not too different than what we have been experiencing. But starting in March through September, there may be upheavals in the world. After September, it will start calming down again. And the nature of those we don't know. But I think it's important for all of us who are part of this Sevaka order and part of Ananda communities to see what our role is. You know, back in the time of Christ, since we're in the middle of the Christmas season right now as we record this, there were a group of Jews who separated themselves from the world, the Essenes, and they went and formed communities. And they were a very deep, devoted group, and a lot of contemplation, prayer, meditation, and praying for others. And in fact, when you read about them, they even had something called the Festival of Light, which of course we observe every week during our Sunday services. But it was in Mary and Joseph, the family into which Christ was born, were members of this Essene community. So at that time in history, again, it was a time of injustice and persecution. The Roman Empire and its armies were dominant and bearing down very heavily on every population that they conquered. But these Essene communities removed themselves and lived very simply in the desert. You can go, we visited when we were in the Holy Land some years ago, we went to the Essene community at Qumran, and where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. And it was just the ruins. It doesn't obviously exist anymore today, but very powerful vibrations still exist. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if many of us were not members of the Essene order and the Essene communities. And here we are again at this time in history where we are trying to introduce a deeper consciousness and connection with the divine in our lives and for the world. And as we said, it was into that milieu, into that environment, that the baby Jesus was born. Well, here we are again, moving forward in history, and I truly believe that it is into the environment of places like Ananda and spiritual communities and orders throughout the world that the Christ consciousness will take birth. And so it's up to us to understand our role, because yes, Saturn is a planet that can have a malevolent influence, but it also, for devotees, it can have the influence of depth of concentration, interiorization, focus in meditation. And so we can use these energies to deepen our own inner life and to deepen the positive beneficent influence of these planets at this time. So we have a job before us, and I believe it's why we came into this world at this time. I also believe it's why Master through Swami created these Ananda communities and the Sevaka order, that we could be beacons of light during a period of darkness and upheaval. And it's interesting, right now at the Ananda village, there are many new babies being born. There's about 7 young souls that have come in within the last year or two. And when I look at these souls, and I kind of tried to tune into each one of them, I can feel these are not just little goo-goo babies that are going to be crawling around. These souls have consciously chosen to come in to help enhance the power of light at this time. So they have a role, we have a role. We all united as a Sevaka order have a role. So in the coming year, I think our theme will be to have our own deeper meditations and to consciously pray for the world and for peace and harmony. And through this, maybe we can see the world through a time of testing into a time of more peace and more divine light throughout mankind. Now, I'd like to offer you, going along with what we've been speaking of, a focus item for this month of January and really throughout the year. Master gave a beautiful prayer that we have used in many, shared, I should say, in many public talks in different places. But the prayer is to create harmony and healing where there are 2 individuals that have not a good vibration between them. But we can also use it in a more expanded way, the technique that he gave, for world peace. And this is what he recommends, that for 1 minute each day, you mentally repeat, and this is our variation on it, Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. And you should be concentrating at the spiritual eye and projecting these thoughts. You repeat this over and over for 1 minute. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. And at the end of 1 minute, then you say, repeat for 15 seconds, Lord, fill me with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. And so our focus item for January, but as I say, let's do this if we can. Remember to do it throughout the year. Do it at our morning meditation inwardly and at our evening meditation, or whenever your second meditation is, before dinner, before bed, whenever it may be. But let's do this together, consciously trying to offset whatever forces of negativity may be coming to the world at this time. And in this way, we can be channels for Master and the Great Ones and help to fulfill their mission. So let's do this together now. Sit up and close your eyes and repeat after me. For 1 minute we'll do this. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill this world with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. And now, Lord, fill me with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill me with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill me with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Let's do this together now, and let's feel the blessings and power of the Great Ones flowing through us. Have a very, very blessed 2016.
Joy to you, my friends, and God bless you, and God bless all of us in our spiritual efforts and as the instruments of life and of joy and peace and harmony for Master and the Great Ones. God bless you.